Welcome back to my series where I rank the top 10 crash outs in the Bible. Today we are on number 5. I am listing the other ones above me. Let's get into this. So out of the 66 books in this Bible, there is one person that baffles me, and I have ranked him as number 5. Now, much like Saul, he has a lot of crash outs, and it was honestly very challenging to pick one because he, to me, is the epitome of don't make me mad. And what did these people do? They made him mad. You might have guessed it. We are going to talk about Samson. Okay, so a little bit of context. Samson belonged to the Lord before he even was born. So the angel of the Lord came to his mom twice and was like, hey, I know you've been having trouble conceiving, but you're going to have a son and you're going to be consecrated, and he's going to be consecrated to the Lord. He's going to be a Nazarite. Don't eat or touch anything unclean. Don't drink any beer or any wine. Don't cut his hair. And they're like, cool, sounds amazing, right? So they have him. He's consecrated to the Lord. Let's fast forward, and we're going to start with Judges 14. So it says that, Samson's a little bit older. He sees this one Philistine woman. He's like, I gotta have it, need that, right? And so he goes to his parents. He's like, I need her as a wife. And they're like, why would you go to a Philistine woman to marry her? Why wouldn't you choose one of the Israelite women? Because context, the Philistines were ruling over the Israelite community for about 40 years. Now, I don't know which year this was when this was happening, but they were essentially ruling over them. So essentially, his parents were like horrified because why would you want to marry an oppressor? What? And he's like, no, gotta have her. So it was the Lord's plan for him to want her. Okay, so we're gonna fast forward one time, right? Because Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother and came to the vineyard of Timnah. And this happened, the next part happens when it was just Samson. So suddenly a young lion came roaring at him, and the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully on him, and he tore the lion apart with his bare hands, as if, he had torn a young goat. I guess that's supposed to be an easier tear. I don't know. He didn't tell his mother or his father, right? So then we fast forward, and when Samson comes to marry the Philistine woman, he sees, and he goes to that vineyard, and he sees, oh, the carcass is there, but there's some bees flying in and out of it because there was honey. Like they had set up shop in the lion's carcass. So what does he do? He scoops his hand and he eats the honey. And it says that he just ate the honey as he went along, as if it was a bag of chips, as if it was candy. Not only does he eat it while he's going along, he then goes and shares it with his parents, and they don't know where the honey's from either. So they're eating honey that came out of a dead animal. Really interesting. Okay, so verse 10, his father went to go visit the woman, Samson's, new wife, and Samson was preparing a feast because, period, men cook. And young men were accustomed to. So when the Philistines saw him, they brought 30 men to accompany him. And Samson's like, let's make this interesting. I'm going to tell y'all a riddle. And if y'all can guess the riddle, then I'm going to give you guys 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothes. But if you can't explain it to me, you must give me 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothes. And they're like, cool, let's do it. So his riddle is, verse 14, out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. So back then, weddings were not a one-day party type of situation. This was a 7-day long feast. 7 days. After 3 days, they couldn't explain it. There's 30 of these men, and not one of them understand what he's saying. So on the 4th day, they went to Samson's wife, and they said, persuade your husband to explain the riddle to us, or we will air fry you and your father's family to be finished. Did you invite us to rob us? So Samson's wife, instead of telling Samson, hey, these men have threatened me, go handle that, she said, no, you hate me and don't love me. You told my people the riddle, but you haven't explained it to me. And Samson's like, I didn't even tell my parents. Why would I tell you? But she wept the entire 7-day feast and nagged him to no end. So he ended up telling her what the riddle meant. And so on the 7th day, which was the deadline of when they could tell Samson what the riddle meant, on the 7th day before sunset, they said, what is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? So, they're feeling really cocky. Pissed him off. So Samson says, if you hadn't plowed with my young cow, you wouldn't know my riddle now. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully on him, and he went down to Ashkelon and unalived 30 men. He stripped their clothes and gave it to those who had explained the riddle to him. So then in a rage, Samson returned back to his father's house. Now he didn't divorce the woman or anything like that. He just needed to go cool off. Sometime later, he gets his young goat. He goes back to his father-in-law's house. He's like, you know, he's a little peace offering. He's a little gift. You know, where's my wife? I want to be with her. Where's my wife? And his father-in-law was like, oh, I thought you hated her. I gave her to one of the men who accompanied you. But isn't her younger sister better looking? You know, isn't she prettier? Why don't you take her instead? Pissed him off. So Samson said in Judges 15 verse 3, this time I will be blameless when I harm the Philistines. It's not looking good. So he catches 300 foxes. He puts a torch between each pair of their tails. He ignites the torch. They get released. They get released into the standing grain of the Philistines, right? So they have this field of standing grain. He burned the piles of grain and the standing grain as well as the vineyards and olive groves. Now, I know this is an agricultural context, but I need you guys to think of it modernly. It'd be the equivalent of burning down a corporation. It'd be the equivalent of burning down headquarters, burning down a building where lots of people are employed. I mean, this is a money type of situation. This is not, oh, you burnt my flowers, even though, yes, we do love flowers. This is you took away my money. You're messing with my money. So the Philistines was like, who did this? And they, you know, said it was because Samson's father-in-law gave away his wife to another man. And so what did they do? The Philistines, they didn't even go after Samson. They went and they took Samson's wife and her father and air fried them. Pissed Samson off. So he says in verse 7, because you did this, I swear that I won't rest until I have vengeance on you. Tore them limb from limb. And then went down and stayed in the cave at the rock of Etam. Now, it doesn't even say that he was in hiding. You know, there are parts in the Bible where it says, you know, they fled and they went to go hide in the cave. No, it just says that he went to the cave and he's just cooling off at this point, right? And so while he's chilling in the cave, the Philistines go to this region in Judah, which is part of the Israelite nation, right? Goes to Judah, and in this city called Lehi, they raid it. And so the Judeans are like, why are you raiding us? What did we do? And so they said, we have come to tie Samson up and pay him back for what he did to us. And so people of Judah, they gathered 3,000 men to go pick up Samson. Now, Samson is one person. They said, we don't need 30. We don't need 300. We need 3,000 men to go and pick this man up. He is a nuisance. Crazy man. Paraphrasing here, obviously. So the 3,000 men, they went to the cave and they said, you idiot. Don't you know the Philistines rule over us? What have you done to us? Valid, okay? Because the Philistines, again, were in charge of the Israelites and not in a good way. They were oppressive. And so Samson's response was, I've done to them what they did to me. They didn't even argue back with him. They were like, you know what? We came to tie you up and hand you over to the Philistines. And he was like, okay, wait. You're just going to tie me up, right? You're not going to take me out the game. And they're like, no, we're not going to take you out the game, but we're going to tie you up and we're going to give you over, right? I said, cool, just swear that you won't take me out of the game. You're just going to tie me up. So they tie him up. And so when they put 2 new ropes on him and they led him away from that rock. And verse 14 says, when he came to Lehi, which is the same place that was raided, the Philistines came to meet him shouting. And then the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully on him, and the ropes that were on his arms and wrists became like burnt flax and fell off. So it just fell off, right? Found a fresh jawbone off of a donkey. Donkey's gone, y'all. And reached out his hand, took it, and finished 1,000 men with it. I don't know. I'm gonna stop there because there's nothing else that really happens after that except for he decides to name the place Jawbone Hill in verse 17. All of this happened before the famous story of Samson and Delilah, mind you. Like this is crazy. Anyways, ranked him number 5. Can't wait till I can explain 4, 3, 2, and 1. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. I hope that you learned something. Again, Samson really baffles me, especially when you look into Samson and Delilah. But I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Stay tuned for the next video.